Newsfirst, Newsline.
Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Newsline. We're coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. As always, what's different is, of course, your usual host Faraj Shaukat is out for the day. I'm Charlene Benedict and I will be sitting in for him today. The discussion that everybody is having right now is the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. We've been discussing this topic on Newsline specifically quite broadly over the past few weeks. But now we've really come to a decisive point where there have been 19 petitions filed at the Supreme Court against the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. What really is the procedure that will be followed and what comes next? To educate our viewers on these points, of course, we've got one of the best people in the business. He is the Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of Technology in Jamaica, Professor Prathiba Mahanamahewa. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation and joining us despite your busy schedule, of course. So, Professor, my first question to you really is, it was gazetted, the 20th Amendment was gazetted, the first reading was done, and now there are multiple parties that have taken this matter to court. What next?
Now actually, first reading already done.
Exactly.
And thereafter, until Tuesday, they may entertain 7 days given. From the day of the first reading, 7 days, they will get the petitions.
Right.
And thereafter, within 21 days, within 21 days, the Supreme Court will look all these things and they will interpret and finally they will give the decision to Honorable Speaker. Then it comes the second reading.
Right.
When you come to the second reading, the debate start. With that, you need 2/3 majority of vote. Thereafter, what will happen? This will go to the committee stages. Now, in the committee stages, opposition, government party, and the people, lot of civil organizations, they had given their views and recommendations.
Okay.
So it is an open stage there. So what will happen? They can amend or they can add, certain things will happen. So that is where the third reading, and it will go to the debate. Once again, you need 2/3 majority to pass that. And not enough. Finally, after that, it will go to the Honorable Speaker's signature. So at least it will take 1 month from here. So 29th, the petitions were, considered.
Fixed for support.
Yeah, fixed for support, and then within 21 days. Now, Supreme Court sometimes may not take 21 days. It can be lesser than that. So maximum period is 21 days.
But of course, many of these petitioners are really requesting the Supreme Court, alleging at least that their fundamental rights have been violated, that entrenched provisions of the Constitution have been touched by the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, and thus they're pointing out that this requires a referendum. Do you think we'll have a referendum in a few days?
I can argue like this. Now, after preparation of this gazette, it was presented to Honorable Attorney General.
Yes.
So Attorney General had given opinion. So the first one, always government consult, cabinet consult. So now Attorney General's opinion, this is not contradiction or go beyond the Constitution, but still that is not enough. So my argument is this. Now what will happen with the 20th Amendment? Now let's see why the 19th Amendment came, because of the loopholes in 18th Amendment. It was introduced 19th Amendment.
Right.
Now what the original Constitution 1978 is an executive president. So with the 19th Amendment, lot of powers and appointments and other things restricted with the Constitution Council.
Right.
Are newly established. So what will happen with the 20th Amendment? Reverse back to the 18th Amendment position and 1970 Constitution. Because I have seen last 4.5 years, there was no collaboration between the President and the Prime Minister.
Right.
The President do whatever he wants, the Prime Minister do whatever he wants. You know how many times the cabinet didn't function properly. And you please look into these now Easter Sunday attack commission. All these are now revealing. So how can you run a situation like that? Prime Minister try to take the powers and you can't coordinate it. It will finally...
Professor, I believe even the members of the previous government accepted that there were certain flaws in the 19th Amendment when it comes to the distribution of powers, especially between the President and the Prime Minister, the two key positions in government. However, one thing that we really cannot forget is the fact that the 19th Amendment to the Constitution also introduced a new fundamental right to the general public of Sri Lanka, and that is the right to information. Now, one of the arguments that is being put forward by some of these petitioners really is the fact that the 20th Amendment, by the removal of the Constitutional Council, has not really set up an alternative measure for the appointment of the Right to Information Commission. And as such, it infringes on the right to information, which is a fundamental right, an entrenched provision affecting the sovereignty of the people as per Article 3. Is there any logic to this?
I believe, this is my personal opinion.
Okay.
Now, with the 20th Amendment, there won't be a Constitutional Council. So the abolition of the Constitutional Council is there. And then what will happen? Replace that, like 18th Amendment,
right.
we had the Parliament Council is coming up. Your argument with this, because after 18th Amendment only this right to information
was introduced to us.
Recognized and guaranteed as a fundamental human right. All right. So you say your argument was based on the appointment of commissioners.
Yes.
So I don't think it is a bigger issue than that. But even I have to tell one thing. This is only a interim period. You know, the government will introduce a new constitution. For that it will take more than 2 years at least. I have seen in South Africa they took 1994 to 1996 to introduce. But until that period, the freedom should be there for the president to run the country without any restriction. But the question you asked, I never answered. The question you asked is Constitutional Council.
Yes.
So will that affect the people's fundamental right? I mean, two things can do it. There can be an amendment for that, or even the Supreme Court, I don't know. They will ask, they will say, if they see provision by provision, sometimes it can be challenged, and they can, you know, yeah, what you say, yes, you go for a referendum for this article. Then what will happen? The whole, you know, that right can be dropped. But don't worry, still the Right to Information Act is there. Act is functioning.
But what's the point of an act without a commission, which is highly instrumental in enforcing the act? If I go to an information officer, request for information, he denies me the information, then where can I appeal to?
No.
If there is no commission.
The commission can be appointed by the Parliament Council.
However, this brings me to my next question. Now, there is no provision in the 20th Amendment really for the appointment of the Right to Information Commission. And the current government has, members at least of the government have accepted that there are certain flaws in the 20th Amendment, although they specifically did not pinpoint and say this is this and that is that. Is there really any logic in the government presenting this to Parliament, tabling this in Parliament without consensus within the cabinet and the government?
My argument is this. Now, when the Gazette was introduced, enough time was there for the general public to challenge. But your argument is consensus. I don't know whether they had a discussion or not, but I heard when it was sent to the cabinet, they had some discussions on that. And thereafter, you can remember the Prime Minister also appointed a committee to look into this. That means their intention is very clear. If any amendment coming for the new addition or for the drop addition, President clearly said. So one option is now opening, Supreme Court petitions. Second option is there, in the committee stages, it can be added or it can be, you know, deleted.
Dr. Prathiba, now when amendments are included in the committee stage, and if these amendments really affect an entrenched provision or a fundamental right, is there any space for the general public to challenge these amendments that are brought in the committee stage?
That's the issue in Sri Lanka Constitution. So only thing, when the amendment introduced in the committee stages, only the Parliament. So after that, there is no provision in our constitution to challenge. So the only chance to challenge within the 7 days if you go to the Supreme Court.
Right.
So that can be a loophole, and the new constitution when introduced, you can consider it once again.
That is a serious loophole that really allows Parliament to bring in amendments that might affect the fundamental rights of the people through the back door.
I don't think so, because this 20th amendment may not change the structure of the 1978 constitution. And the foundation of 1978 constitution protects. Then with the 20th amendment, as you say, it go ultra virus, goes beyond that power. Yes, Supreme Court can basically see whatever the Supreme Court decision, government has to abide with that. So all these arguments, even this discussion is very important, whatever you are pointing out. Now there is a good chance for the legislators to think about it and come up with a good thing. I have seen the opposition leader also making a statement today, giving certain things government to consider. So I think that is another consensus we have to consider.
Professor, you drew the example of South Africa, and you said that it took them 2 years to draft a new constitution, and you said in the interim period it is extremely important that the president has a free hand to really govern the country. But I posed this question to Dr. Suren Raghavan on Face the Nation a few days ago as well. I asked him as to, and I'm going to ask you the same question. So I want to really ask you, what is it really that the president cannot do under the current provisions of the Constitution that he will be allowed to do under the 20th Amendment? That was at least included in his manifesto when it comes to governing the country, when it comes to delivering on the promises that the president made through his manifesto, Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor.
Yeah. My argument is this. 19th Amendment restricted the president's, functions or president's powers by the Constitutional Council. Now still the Constitutional Council is functioning.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Do you think we have to run the Constitutional Council for another 2 years with this, I am not criticizing people, but the activities they have done, it's a damage to our country. That's the point I want to make. Right? Even the president appoint one person, okay, it go to the, not appoint, he recommend. The president can recommend a person for a position.
Right.
Then what will happen? It will go to the Constitutional Council. The Constitutional Council can deny it. And what will happen to the president? President is coming from the people's power. Civilians are just appointed. Who appoint the civilians? Civilians are appointed by, you see what happened in the 19th Amendment. Opposition leader, they must have a discussion. Opposition leader and the Prime Minister. So President also coming with a huge power in Sri Lanka. So do you agree? Just to restrict? Okay. Then my argument is this: with the new constitution, totally abolish the executive presidency. Totally abolish the executive.
Go for a Westminster Parliament.
Yes, Westminster Parliament. Like Caribbean countries we have seen. Nicely it is functioning. So my argument is this: if you have a president, don't restrict, because I mean this is like a referendum. So President party once again endorse the power in the parliament. That means people wish. President openly said we are going to abolish 19th Amendment. So he has pledged the promise. If that is so, you think going beyond the powers, you can challenge it. Okay. Now, if you don't want the presidency, okay, we can, I don't know, the committee has been set up, they can consider
abolishing
to go for a
presidency completely.
At the moment, don't do it, because people had given the power and the mandate already given. Now, South Africa only 2 years. India, it took 4 years, from 1947 to 1950, 1947.
Well, last time around we tried 4.5 years wasn't enough for us. When we tried it the last time.
Yes, but actually it was not functioning well. No. Now, once you set up these committees, now 3 ways you can change the constitution. One is you have to take the public opinion.
Professor, we are really in a good point in our discussion, and you were speaking about going back to the 78 constitutional system, or the system that prevailed in the country following the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. However, there are a few overarching provisions when it comes to transparency, especially when it comes to the Audit Commission, the fact that any state institutions that the government holds more than a 50% stake cannot be audited, and by the Auditor General. So these provisions really affect the transparency in these institutions, and we will discuss all of them with the Professor right after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere, you're watching Newsline.
News First, Newsline.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsline on TV1. Professor, we were discussing about the 20th Amendment to the Constitution and how it's reverting us back to the 1978 Constitution, and you said that there's nothing wrong with that because we have an executive president, and if we are under an executive presidential system, the president's powers must not be restricted. But we're really going a little bit above that, aren't we, when it comes to especially what I mentioned before, the fact that state institutions that are owned by the state, more than 50%, cannot be audited. Now, Parliament is responsible for public finances. Article 148 of the Constitution guarantees that. How can Parliament be responsible for public finances if they don't have access to audit reports of state institutions?
Even today I have seen a lot of recommendations coming from civil society.
Right.
One of the main argument they say, audit commission or even the
Auditor General.
Auditor General, and you have to audit it.
Yeah.
So if there is a consensus like that, or even there is a debate like that, now the only stage you can consider it in the committee stages. I think the President said it. We will consider whatever. I think in the Prime Minister also appointed a committee. In that committee also they are discussing. So there is an option. Actually, this is a blanket open situation is there now. But I say if people, civil society, lot of pressure is coming up, so still they can consider it. Auditing is necessary, private or public. Specifically, public finance, yes. So the Auditor General is there. So the Auditor General is the one who is auditing before the 19th Amendment also. So if you are actually, giving an exemption for the state institution, there must be a strong argument behind that.
But there must be a strong argument for it.
Yeah, for it. So we will see how the government is going to consider this, audit commission and the auditing things. I think the civil society is making a recommendation for that. I have seen it.
Well, corruption is a thing that has been persistent in our country for quite a long time. 70 years of experience we have of it. And of course, now that this 20th Amendment to the Constitution has been challenged at the Supreme Court, there will be some creative arguments that are put before the court, and we will, of course, we'll be able to report to you on those arguments that have been submitted as well. One interesting article that I read was regarding the connection between corruption and fundamental rights, and how it really affects the fundamental rights of the people. Of course, there can be creative arguments like this too being presented, but speaking regarding especially the corruption issue that we have in our country, do you believe that this is a sensible amendment to be brought in to remove these state institutions, especially some state institutions like the Sri Lankan Airlines, especially from the oversight of Parliament?
Now, we had a very independent commission, CBOC.
CBOC, yes.
Now, CBOC was working. Was it independent? I can just last 4.5 years, massive corruption happened.
Okay.
Were they able to stop it? How the commissioner, how the Director General acted, how they were having conversation.
But I need to
but I want to tell this.
Okay.
Even the biggest problems created in that, were they able to manage it?
Well, you can't expect a simple commission that has been set up just at the beginning of the 4.5 years to solve the corruption issue that has been persistent in the country for the past 70 years. Now, can you?
I am telling the good governance concept and the 19th Amendment, how they established it. Were they managed to change it? How many cases they filed? In that government, ministers, massive corruption. Even they didn't appear in the commission most of the time. So they had enough power, independent commission, but even that they were failed to execute that. Well, my issue is that execution was the biggest problem last 4.5 years.
Well, Professor, the argument really here is the fact that we can't control people. I can't control how you would act or what you would do. Exactly. You can act ethically. We can't control the ethics of a person, but what we can do really is to establish a proper procedure for that person to act within, so that there are enough safeguards not to allow that person, even if he is tempted to go towards corruption or to, there is always temptation. We're all human beings. We're tempted to do certain things that we're not supposed to do. And that is where the audit comes in. Because even now, as an employee of a private firm, I might be tempted to do something that is unethical. And what really would stop me is the knowledge or the understanding of the fact that there will be an audit, that I might be caught and I might have to suffer the consequences. If those are not there, then where is the control?
You are purely talking about the theoretical aspect,
the procedure.
Or the procedural aspect.
Exactly.
But even the procedural aspect were there. How biased these people who take the decisions. That's why I'm telling you. You know, in Sri Lanka, this must establish from school level how to minimize, how to stop corruption. Just putting a commission, will it work? Give me some examples. Now if you are talking about the 19th Amendment, when it was existing, how many cases went to courts and how many people were convicted? That's the thing. So with that bad experience, this new government may have thought, okay, we will scrap down that and we will establish a new system. I mean, my personal argument is basically coming up, yes, auditing, there must be. So I can't actually say on what basis it went on, but I have read it. The people who drafted it, they may have some intention, rather than the person, the content is very important, I mean. So on that basis, sometimes they can reintroduce, rethink this audit commission with the pressure and the lobby groups coming in these days. You can see it.
Of course, the petitions will be taken up for consideration. They've been fixed for support on the 29th of September, and you can of course rely on News First to provide you with accurate and timely information regarding all of these proceedings in court, and of course much more regarding the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. This is a piece of legislation that will affect each and every one of us, be living in Colombo or in the rural areas of Sri Lanka. It will affect all of us on how we function in the future, how our fundamental rights are guaranteed, and as such it is important that the general public is aware of the things that happen in the country, especially surrounding the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. And that is why we are extremely grateful to you, Professor, for coming on our show despite your busy schedule and educating the general public regarding all these complicated matters. And I must say that you put it in quite a simplified way. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much once again to all our viewers out there for tuning in to Newsline. Of course, we will see you again same time, same place on Monday. Exactly, today is Friday. I almost forgot that, Professor. So we'll see you again same time, same place on Monday. Until then, take care and God bless. Have a safe weekend.